Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. She's not heartless, she just learned how to feel without bleeding. There's something unnerving about the Sigma female, something that makes people whisper her name like a secret they don't fully understand. She doesn't fit into emotional categories, she rewrites them. One moment she's deeply empathetic, the next she's colder than silence itself. And it's this unpredictable balance between compassion and detachment that makes people ask the forbidden question, is she a psychopath? Before you roll your eyes, consider this. Studies have shown that people who display high emotional control and low social dependence are often misread as manipulative or unfeeling. In other words, the Sigma female's ability to stay composed while others emotionally combust doesn't make her dangerous. It makes her misunderstood. She's the type who can attend your emotional meltdown, hand you a tissue, and still remind you that it's your fault, all with the calmness of a therapist who's been overbooked since 2012. There's humor in that paradox, but also a chilling truth. She's mastered the art of feeling deeply without being ruled by it. And that's where her mystery begins, in the fine line between emotional intelligence and emotional detachment, where empathy starts to look like calculation and self-preservation starts to resemble psychopathy. Number 1. She doesn't fear losing people. She fears losing herself. A Sigma female doesn't measure life by the number of people around her or the approval she receives. She doesn't cling to relationships out of fear of being alone, and she doesn't compromise her values for temporary comfort. Most people live in a constant tug-of-war between connection and self-preservation, often sacrificing pieces of themselves just to stay liked or included. She operates differently. Her guiding principle is alignment with her own truth, and that means she will walk away from anyone, family, friends, lovers, who threatens her sense of self, even if the departure leaves a crater in their lives. This doesn't make her cruel, it makes her disciplined. She has learned that losing herself in someone else's expectations, dramas, or emotional turbulence is far more dangerous than losing someone else's company. She understands that the cost of compromise for the sake of comfort is steep. It erodes confidence, dulls intuition, and chains her energy to people who aren't worthy of it. While others panic at the thought of abandonment, she is calm because she knows the worst thing isn't isolation. It's becoming someone she doesn't recognize in the mirror. Her fearlessness in this regard is what unnerves people most. When she leaves, she doesn't flail or negotiate. There's no pleading, no over-explaining, no begging for validation. She simply removes herself with a level of precision that feels cold, like a professional excising what no longer serves her growth. To outsiders, it looks ruthless, almost psychopathic, but the reality is that she values her internal world above all external pressures. This ability to prioritize self-preservation over social expectation is what gives her an almost untouchable aura. People mistake her calm decisiveness for lack of emotion, but in truth, she feels everything deeply. She just refuses to allow anyone else's chaos to hijack her mind or dilute her essence. She will never risk her identity for the comfort of anyone else, and that rare quality, misunderstood as detachment, is what sets her apart from the rest. She doesn't fear losing people because her life isn't built on others. It's built on herself. Number 2, she treats closure as emotional self-sabotage. For most people, closure is a sacred ritual, a chance to demand explanations, extract apologies, or feel the sweet relief of understanding. The Sigma female sees it differently. To her, closure is often a trap, a subtle invitation to let someone else's narrative invade her mind, manipulate her emotions, and rewrite her story. She doesn't need a last word, a confession, or even an acknowledgement of wrongdoing to move on. Seeking closure is, in her eyes, a form of emotional self-sabotage because it gives power over her peace to someone who no longer deserves it. She recognizes that the urge for closure comes from attachment, from lingering dependence on a person or outcome that has already proven itself toxic. While others replay conversations, agonize over what went wrong, or wait for some form of validation, she refuses to invest her energy. Every second spent chasing explanations is a second stolen from her growth, clarity, and sanity. She doesn't hold grudges in the traditional sense. She simply removes herself from the situation completely, leaving nothing behind for anyone to grab onto. This detachment can feel jarring, even cruel to those left in her wake. People assume that because she doesn't linger, she doesn't care. But the truth is far sharper. She cares enough about herself not to let anyone else rewrite her emotional state. Her refusal to seek closure also demonstrates a level of discipline most people never achieve. She understands that the mind is a battlefield, and every lingering thought about someone else's actions is ammunition she doesn't need. By cutting herself off mentally and emotionally, she maintains sovereignty over her own reality. To onlookers, this may appear ruthless, even psychopathic, because it defies the social expectation of dramatized reconciliation. In truth, it's pure self-preservation executed with precision. In the end, her avoidance of closure isn't avoidance of truth, it's mastery over it. She has no need for explanations because she already understands the only thing that matters, her own boundaries and her own peace. Her emotional autonomy is absolute, and anyone who expects traditional closure will find nothing but quiet indifference. This is the power that makes her unpredictable, unshakable, and profoundly intimidating to anyone who hasn't learned to respect themselves the way she respects herself. Number 3. She sees through charisma like it's glass. The Sigma female has a rare talent. She can look at someone and see past all the charm, flattery, and smooth words. While most people get caught up in charisma, mistaking it for sincerity, she decodes it instantly. Compliments that feel like honey to others are nothing more than signals to her, cues to evaluate motives, intentions, and hidden agendas. She doesn't just notice the words. She notices the timing, the micro shifts in body language, the way a smile sits on someone's face, and the subtle inconsistencies that reveal the truth beneath the performance. To her, charisma is not a gift, it's a tool, and she refuses to let anyone use it to manipulate her. Her ability to see through charm makes her intimidating because it strips away illusions that others rely on to navigate social life. People assume that if they're confident or magnetic, they hold power, but in her presence, that power evaporates. She doesn't react with jealousy or fear, she reacts with awareness. She understands that charisma without substance is empty, and she refuses to invest her energy in illusions. That awareness often makes others feel exposed, like a magician caught in the act of sleight of hand. It's not that she wants to humiliate them, she simply refuses to be fooled. This talent is also a protective mechanism. She has learned, often through experience, that charm can be a mask for deceit, selfishness, or hidden motives. By seeing through it, she shields herself from unnecessary betrayal, disappointment, and manipulation. It gives her the freedom to engage selectively, to offer trust only where authenticity is present, and to walk away without hesitation when it isn't. What makes her presence even more unnerving is that she doesn't announce this ability. She observes quietly, cataloging behaviors, reading intentions, and making decisions without drama. To anyone relying on charisma as their weapon, she is untouchable. Her immunity to flattery, charm, and superficial appeal is a silent form of power, one that feels almost unnatural to those who have built their lives around the illusion of influence. It's one of the many reasons she is often misunderstood as cold, calculating, or even psychopathic. when in reality she is simply untethered from the illusions that ensnare the average person. Number 4. She's not heartless. She's heart-protected. The Sigma female is often mistaken for being cold or unfeeling, but the truth is far more complex. She feels everything deeply, more deeply than most people can comprehend, but she has learned to armor her heart. Life has taught her that empathy without boundaries is a dangerous vulnerability, and she refuses to surrender herself to anyone who might exploit it. Her detachment isn't a lack of emotion, it's an evolved form of self-preservation. She has constructed a fortress around her heart, not to keep love out entirely, but to control exactly who gets in and how much they are allowed to touch her soul. This heart protection is precise and unyielding. She knows the difference between those who add value to her life and those who drain it. When people cross the line, disrespect her boundaries, or fail to meet her on a level of authenticity, she doesn't retaliate with drama or anger. She simply withdraws. She doesn't waste energy explaining herself or justifying her absence. To outsiders, this can seem harsh or even cruel, but the reality is that she is maintaining a sacred trust with herself. Every step she takes is measured to preserve her emotional integrity, and she refuses to compromise that for anyone, no matter how persuasive or charming they may be. Her heart protection makes her unpredictable to the average person. People are used to emotional availability as a default, and when she doesn't comply, they project fear or judgment onto her. But she has no time for misunderstanding. She values her energy as a currency far more than she values the comfort of others' assumptions. Her decisions are guided not by societal expectation, but by an unshakable internal compass that prioritizes her well-being above all else. The power of a Sigma female lies in this careful preservation of her heart. She can feel profoundly, care deeply, and connect intensely, but only on her own terms. That combination of depth and control makes her formidable, magnetic, and often misunderstood. She's not heartless. She's someone who has survived too much, loved too deeply, and refused to let the world steal what is hers. Her heart is hers alone, and she protects it with a vigilance that borders on sacred. Number 5, she's intimidating because she's impossible to control. The Sigma female carries an aura that immediately unsettles people who are used to bending others to their will. She doesn't respond to manipulation, guilt, or coercion. She isn't swayed by flattery, seduction, or fear tactics. That lack of dependency on anyone else's approval or validation makes her feel untouchable. And to many, that untouchability is frightening. People are accustomed to relationships built on need, leverage, or emotional pressure. When they encounter someone who refuses to play those games, they instinctively label her as dangerous or even psychopathic. Her power lies in her emotional and psychological independence. She doesn't rely on others to fill gaps in her confidence or self-worth. Because of that, attempts to control or influence her often fail spectacularly, leaving manipulators exposed and frustrated. She sees through the mechanics of influence, understands them at a subconscious level, and refuses to engage unless it aligns with her own values. Her detachment doesn't come from apathy, it comes from clarity. She knows what she wants, who she is, and how far she will allow anyone to infringe on her autonomy. This resistance to control isn't just practical, it's magnetic. People are drawn to her precisely because she cannot be owned or dominated, but it also makes her intimidating. The very idea that she cannot be coerced challenges the ego of anyone who is accustomed to being the puppet master in relationships. They feel a subtle but powerful fear around her, the fear of exposure, the fear of irrelevance, the fear of losing their leverage. Her independence of emotion and ego is not arrogance, it's mastery. She controls herself before she can be controlled by anyone else. That discipline makes her presence commanding without effort and unnerving without intent. The Sigma female doesn't seek to intimidate, yet her refusal to be swayed, her immunity to manipulation, and her unshakable self-possession make her one of the most formidable personalities anyone will ever encounter. People who need validation to exist see that as dangerous, but for her, it's simply life lived on her own terms. Number 6. She doesn't crave connection. She chooses it like a contract. The Sigma female approaches relationships with the precision of a strategist rather than the impulsiveness of someone driven by need. She doesn't dive into bonds seeking comfort, validation, or constant companionship. Every connection she forms is intentional, like signing an unspoken contract. A mutual understanding that both parties must bring depth, authenticity, or growth to the table. She doesn't tolerate emotional games, superficiality, or the kind of constant drama that others mistake for passion. To her, relationships are not playgrounds for ego or dependency. They are exchanges of energy that must be meaningful and worthwhile. This selective approach often confuses people. Those who measure love and friendship by frequency of contact, emotional clinginess, or performative loyalty assume she is cold, detached, or even heartless. In reality, her detachment is a measure of respect, for herself first and for others second. She doesn't waste time on relationships that drain her or force her into compromises she isn't willing to make. Every interaction is consciously filtered, every bond weighed for its substance and potential. Her choice to engage or disengage is not a reflection of her capacity to care, it's a reflection of her standards. She values authenticity over quantity, presence over pretense. People who can't meet her standards quickly see her as inhuman or unapproachable, but that's simply the consequence of a mind that refuses to settle for mediocrity in emotional investment. The Sigma female's approach to connection is empowering, both for her and for those who truly earn her presence. Those who respect her boundaries and rise to her level find relationships that are profound, rare, and transformative. Those who don't are simply released without drama or apology. This intentionality, this unwavering insistence that every bond must serve growth or meaning, is what makes her magnetic, misunderstood, and to many, terrifying. She doesn't crave connection because she doesn't need it to survive. She chooses it because it must matter. Number 7. She observes humanity like a behavioral scientist. The Sigma female watches people in a way that few can even comprehend. While most are absorbed in their emotions, reactions, and social scripts, she steps back and sees patterns, motives, and truths that others overlook. Every micro-expression, every hesitation in tone, every flicker of body language is data to her, not to judge, not to manipulate, but to understand. She doesn't just listen to words, she deciphers the intention behind them. This level of observation allows her to navigate social interactions with a precision that feels almost surgical. Her ability to detach while studying others is what makes her presence so unsettling. People assume she is calculating or cold because she doesn't react the way they expect. She doesn't mirror their panic, envy, or insecurity. She absorbs the information silently, storing it, analyzing it, and using it to make decisions that preserve her energy and integrity. That detachment isn't apathy, it's heightened awareness. She can feel deeply, yet remain strategically composed, a combination that feels unnatural to those who are driven purely by emotion. This observational skill extends beyond the obvious. She can detect insincerity before it's spoken, anticipate hidden agendas, and sense emotional undercurrents that most people fail to recognize. Others may interpret this as manipulation, but she rarely interferes unnecessarily. She watches because knowledge is power, and understanding the people around her allows her to engage intentionally rather than react blindly. Her study of humanity is relentless but subtle. She doesn't announce it, flaunt it, or use it to dominate conversations. Instead, it gives her a quiet authority, an almost magnetic presence. People around her feel exposed without her ever lifting a finger to provoke it. That's why she seems intimidating, enigmatic, even dangerous to those who rely on charm, deception, or social leverage. She isn't calculating in the traditional sense. She's simply aware, operating on a higher plane of observation, and refusing to let the ignorance or chaos of others dictate her life. Number 8. Empathy exhausted, her into rationality. The Sigma female wasn't always this composed. She used to feel everything, every joy, every slight, every heartbreak, with a depth that could overwhelm even those closest to her. Her empathy was a wildfire, burning through her own energy as she absorbed the emotions of everyone around her. But over time, constant exposure to betrayal, manipulation, and emotional chaos forced a transformation. Feeling without boundaries became dangerous, and survival demanded adaptation. She learned to numb selectively, to filter emotional input with the precision of someone who has been burned too many times. This selective numbness isn't coldness or sociopathy, it's evolved self-preservation. She can still feel profoundly when she chooses, but she no longer allows every wave of drama, deceit, or dependency to hijack her mind. Her nervous system has been trained to recognize patterns of toxicity, and her responses are measured, deliberate, and rational. She analyzes situations with clarity rather than reacting impulsively, and that calm, calculated demeanor often misleads others into thinking she is detached or unfeeling. In truth, she feels more than most, but she has learned to channel it intelligently rather than letting it control her. Her rationality is a byproduct of endurance. Emotional survival has demanded that she evolve from instinctive empath to strategic observer. Where others might spiral, she remains grounded, able to process information without being consumed by it. This isn't indifference, it's mastery. It allows her to navigate relationships, challenges, and conflicts with a level of composure that seems almost unnatural to those still ruled by emotional impulse. What makes her presence so disorienting is that she can empathize, calculate, and act simultaneously. She knows exactly how someone feels, yet she isn't bound by it. She can understand pain, betrayal, or longing, and still make decisions that prioritize her own integrity and survival. This blend of deep feeling and rational control is what makes her seem untouchable, enigmatic, and, to many, almost psychopathic, when in reality she is simply the embodiment of emotional intelligence evolved to its most resilient form. Number 9. She doesn't believe in good or bad, only intent. The Sigma female doesn't think in simple moral terms. To her, labeling actions as good or bad is a superficial exercise, one that ignores the complexity of human motives. She doesn't react to the surface drama of right or wrong. She analyzes intent, context, and consequence. Every choice people make, every action they take, is a signal, not a verdict. This perspective allows her to navigate life without being enslaved by the binary morality that traps most people in endless cycles of judgment, guilt, or blame. Her neutrality can be disarming, even terrifying, to those around her. People who thrive on moral certainty expect reactions, judgments, and alignment with social norms. When she refuses to conform to these expectations, when she refuses to get emotionally swept into conventional notions of good or evil, she's misunderstood. Her refusal to judge doesn't mean she condones harm or irresponsibility. It means she evaluates situations on a deeper, more nuanced level. She sees why people act the way they do and prioritizes understanding over condemnation. This approach often gets misinterpreted as coldness or psychopathy because it violates social expectations. Most people rely on moral narratives to navigate the world, and when someone doesn't play by those rules, it challenges their sense of order. The Sigma female isn't concerned with approval or societal comfort. Her focus is clarity, truth, and self-alignment. She measures people and situations by intent, not by labels, which allows her to respond authentically rather than reactively. Her ability to stay neutral, to assess without judgment, gives her a rare kind of power. She isn't swayed by collective opinion, peer pressure, or the emotional manipulation that morality often enables. This detachment makes her seem unfeeling, calculating, or even dangerous, but the reality is that she's simply operating on a level where understanding outweighs superficial categorization. She sees beyond the black and white world, and in doing so, she frees herself from the emotional chains that most people unknowingly live under. Number 10. Her love has boundaries. Sharp enough to cut, the Sigma female loves differently from most people. When she gives her heart, it is deliberate, intentional, and measured. She doesn't offer love as a default, as a crutch, or as a means of seeking validation. Every ounce of affection, loyalty, or devotion she extends is earned and carefully considered. Her love is precise, not blind, not desperate, not conditional on someone's approval, but guided by respect, integrity, and alignment with her own values. It's powerful, magnetic, and often disarming to those who have only known love as a compromise or a surrender. Her boundaries in love are not negotiable. The moment respect is violated, the moment authenticity is breached, or the moment someone takes her heart for granted, her love vanishes instantly. There is no drama, no gradual fade, no pleading for reconciliation. The cutoff is immediate, surgical, and absolute. To outsiders, this can appear ruthless, even psychopathic, because it challenges their assumptions about attachment, forgiveness, and loyalty. Most people expect endurance, excuses, or tolerance in relationships, but she refuses to compromise herself for the sake of someone else's comfort. This precision is not coldness, it is purity. Her love is a reflection of her self-respect. It cannot exist where respect and authenticity are absent. She has seen too much to tolerate half-hearted affection or manipulative behavior. She understands that love without boundaries is dangerous, that giving without discernment is destructive, and that sacrifice without reciprocity erodes the soul. Her love is therefore rare, profound, and fiercely protected. Those who experience it feel its intensity, its depth, and its clarity. Those who violate it feel its absence like a void. That sharpness, that unwavering insistence on respect and integrity is what makes her both irresistible and intimidating. She doesn't love blindly, she loves wisely. And in that wisdom, her heart becomes a fortress, her devotion a treasure, and her withdrawal a force that few can comprehend or recover from. Number 11. She doesn't fantasize about revenge. She erases you. The Sigma female doesn't play the games most people think define conflict or betrayal. She doesn't plot revenge, rehearse confrontations, or linger on slights. When someone crosses a boundary, betrays trust, or proves themselves unworthy, her response is simple, precise, and absolute. She removes them from her life entirely. There is no spectacle, no dramatic confrontation, no desperate need for explanations. She doesn't waste energy proving a point or satisfying her ego. She deletes. She disappears from your world with the quiet finality of someone who understands that presence is power and absence is more lethal than any outburst. This erasure is more terrifying than revenge because it is not fueled by emotion. It is a calculated act of self-preservation. Hate burns. It can be anticipated, challenged, or endured. Indifference, wielded with intelligence, is invisible, surgical, and unstoppable. Those who expect retaliation are left staring at emptiness, trying to make sense of the disappearance, only to realize that the power dynamics have shifted completely. They are no longer part of her life, because she has chosen not to carry the weight of people who do not belong. Her ability to detach like this requires discipline few possess. She doesn't take lightly the decision to erase someone, but when she does, it is decisive. Every word, every memory, every connection that could tie her to toxicity is severed without fanfare. That clarity, that unwavering commitment to her own energy, makes her presence both magnetic and frightening. People who misread her often interpret this as psychopathy, assuming cruelty where there is only intelligence, strategy, and self-respect. In the Sigma female's world, emotional energy is currency, and she protects it fiercely. Removing someone from her life isn't revenge, it's maintenance. It's an act of sovereignty over her time, mind, and heart. There is no need for explanations or closure, because her life does not bend for anyone who fails to honor it. Her indifference is her ultimate weapon, and it is far more formidable than any rage could ever be. Number 12. She's fluent in human darkness. The Sigma female has a rare ability to navigate the shadows of human nature with clarity and precision. She's seen too much, not just through personal experience, but through acute observation and perception. She understands deceit before it is spoken, recognizes envy before it surfaces, and feels the pull of fear and ego as if it were a language she can read fluently. To most people, these elements of human darkness are confusing, overwhelming, or terrifying. To her they are data, patterns to be understood, anticipated, and when necessary, neutralized. Her fluency in human darkness makes her profoundly unreadable. While the naive rely on masks, performances, and superficial charm, she sees what lies beneath with uncanny accuracy. She doesn't judge or react impulsively. She studies. She notices the subtle manipulations, the unspoken agendas, and the emotional undercurrents that others miss entirely. This awareness allows her to operate in social spaces without being controlled or deceived. She can interact with the most cunning, ego-driven, or manipulative personalities without losing her composure, because she understands the mechanics of their motives in advance. This understanding of darkness isn't something she flaunts. It's quiet, subtle, and deeply effective. People sense her awareness and often feel exposed in her presence, even if she says nothing. That quiet authority makes her intimidating because it signals a comprehension of the world that most are unprepared to face. To someone who thrives in superficiality or relies on manipulation, her insight feels like a threat. She doesn't fear the dark sides of human nature. She studies them, learns from them, and protects herself against them. That makes her presence disarming yet unnerving. She operates from a position of mastery rather than emotion, making her a figure who is both magnetic and incomprehensible. To those who cannot see or understand her depth, she appears mysterious, cold, or even dangerous. In reality, she is simply someone who has learned the language of human darkness and chosen to navigate it with intelligence and clarity rather than fear. Conclusion. The Sigma female is one of the most misunderstood forces in human behavior. To the untrained eye, she appears cold, calculating, and even psychopathic, yet the reality is far more profound. Every action, every choice, every boundary she sets is guided by a combination of intelligence, self-respect, and emotional mastery. She doesn't operate on need, manipulation, or societal expectation. She operates on clarity, intention, and alignment with her own truth. Her detachment is not apathy but precision. Her absence is not vengeance but sovereignty. Her calm in chaos is not indifference but mastery. She is simultaneously empathetic and unyielding, observant and untouchable, powerful and elusive, a paradox that most will never fully understand. What makes her truly formidable is that she has turned life's trials into armor. Every betrayal, every disappointment, every emotional storm has honed her into someone who feels deeply, yet acts wisely. She protects her heart, values her energy, and refuses to allow anyone else to dictate her emotional reality. To be in her presence is to encounter someone who has mastered herself to a degree most will never achieve. She doesn't need to prove her power, and she doesn't seek validation, yet her very existence challenges the assumptions, insecurities, and manipulations of those around her. The Sigma female is a study in human complexity, a living contradiction, magnetic yet untouchable, gentle yet deadly in her precision. Understanding her isn't about trying to tame or predict her. It's about respecting the intelligence, discipline, and boundaries that define her. She teaches a lesson few can handle, that true power is not loud or performative, but measured, intentional, and rooted in self-mastery. If you found these insights eye-opening, transformative, or even a little unsettling, don't keep them to yourself. Subscribe to the channel to dive deeper into the minds of the extraordinary. Like this video to support the content, comment to share your thoughts or experiences, and share it with anyone who needs to understand the profound enigma of the Sigma female. The journey into human psychology is far from over, and this is just the beginning.